All right. Well, welcome everybody to this January 7th, 2021 regular board business meeting. I'm going to call us to order. I have all of our board directors in attendance. Now for communication from the audience. Time has been set aside on the agenda for citizens' requests of the board. Because we're in an online format, the meeting, but because of coronavirus COVID-19 statewide restrictions, our meeting is conducted online. So if you're a member of the community and wish to provide public comment, please email your comments to Sarah Avery at avery4@gresham.k12.or.us by 5 p.m. the day of the meeting, and your comments will be part of the public record. That time will come later on in our agenda. So we do have an agenda. Board, is there any action?
I would move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Director Howitt, seconded by Director Gomez, I believe, to approve the meeting agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. First up is our consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are matters considered by the board to be routine. They'll be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the board or persons in the audience request specific items be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda. This consent agenda, we have 9 items. B1 are minutes from our regular work session on November 5th. B2 are minutes from the regular business meeting November 5th. B3 minutes from the regular work session November 19th. B4 minutes from the regular work session December 3rd. B5 minutes from the business meeting on December 3rd. B6 minutes from the work session on December 17th. B7 financial report as of November 30, 2020. Item B8 personnel report with employee contracts. Item B9 is policy update.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Howitt, seconded by Director O'Connell to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
That was a vote. Aye. Director Stowers or against?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to move forward to recognitions, which is typically the best time in a board meeting. Digitally, we just still haven't cracked the code as to how to do this well. We're so grateful for these folks. The board, we have a couple of recognitions. So I'm going to turn this first one over to Lisa Riggs for Gresham-Barlow Education Foundation members.
Thank you, Chair Peterson and board and Superintendent Pereira. I have the privilege of passing this right along to Tyson Bell, who has been willing to be part of the foundation group that would like to share their recognition of several people. I know that he's here in the audience tonight. I'm hoping that he can recognize the service, but we certainly want to recognize several members of the Gresham-Barlow Education Foundation, many who have obtained emeritus board member status and are also needing to be recognized for their many years of service, along with our fearless leader that is also here tonight. So I'm not sure, Sarah, if Tyson Bell is available to speak, or it's me and I can say all these great things about these people, and then obviously about Vicki Moen as well.
I'm culling through the participants, but there's a lot, so let me see if he's on there.
Okay.
On the panel.
Sarah, he is here. He's third from the bottom on my list. Maybe a little further up now.
He's raised his hand. his digital hand.
Sorry, he keeps jumping around because he had raised his hand. Just a second. So it's rejoining him as a panelist. It sometimes takes just a minute for him to be able to join up to audio.
All right. Welcome. We can't hear you just yet, Tyson, but it might take a little second to sync. While
On my end, it doesn't look like, I don't know if Tyson can hear me still, but it doesn't look like he's joined via audio. I just have a video icon for him. So you may need to call in or join through the audio.
we'll just give a couple minutes, but won't fill it with silence. I'm seeing names that are very familiar to us that we're excited to recognize. The Gresham-Barlow Education Foundation is not something that's just granted to this district. It's not something that's required. This is a community of volunteers who are making tangible impacts in our classrooms, educator-directed impacts in our classrooms that have real effects on our students' experiences here in the district. In other institutions, you would call these margin of excellence programs. They allow us to do so much more. And so we're so grateful for our partnership with the Education Foundation and excited to get to recognize some longstanding board members who have given a lot of their time to this move. So. Let's see if.
So while he's still coming on board or figuring out, I couldn't tell from the executive summary, is Vicki Moen not the executive director anymore? Okay, is this what Tyson Bell is, or is he a board member? John's
Tyson
shaking
Bell.
his head.
Tyson's president of the board.
So is Vicki Moen still there?
Well, Vicki's here with us, but Vicki announced her, I thought at a previous board meeting, but
That was last year.
Yeah, we've been through a lot since then. Tyson, are you able to?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
All right, excellent.
All right, went to a different source.
All right, thanks for doing that.
Sorry about
and
that.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, I appreciate your patience. So again, want to recognize 5 board members with the GBF Foundation. First off is Linda Nelson. She attended the first meeting of the GBF on April 13th, 1994. She has been a significant supporter of the foundation, having served as our committee chair for Spring Festival and as chair of the golf tournament for many years. Linda served as president from 2018 to 2020 and was a member of our executive committee for many years. And we appreciate everything she's done for our foundation over the years. She's been an amazing just catalyst for our foundation and all that she does. So, but she'll still be helping out the golf tournament, just so you know. Next is Jan Barkley. She was one of the founding members, has given her time, talent, and treasure to the foundation for over 25 years. She and Linda Nelson spent some cold nights in the motorhome when they both helped with the Spring Festival. She has been a stalwart supporter of the golf tournament, with the understanding that with this event, it provides much needed support for our district and classroom. Next is Bob Lilly. He also began his volunteer service at the first meeting, has provided leadership and insight for many years. Bob drafted the first long-range plan for the foundation and has been a guiding force in keeping the mission of the foundation at the forefront of all of our decisions. Thank you, Bob. Sue Piazza has been a visionary for the foundation since the beginning. She originated the ideas for several fundraising events, including the Christmas event, the latest, the Cocoa Crawl. She's generously donated proceeds from her Fab 50 celebration to the foundation and served as president, been a voice to the executive committee for many years, and she is, as you all know, a city councilor. And we wish her the best, and she's been fantastic support for the foundation. Vince Patrick, he's our last one. He joined the foundation in 2009. Vince has served the foundation with his financial acumen, serving as treasurer for many years. His direct leadership style served the foundation well. When he served on the executive committee as foundation president, Vince was laser focused on our endowment, and he made it clear to our board that we needed to focus on contributions to that. To get that, our goal was to reach 1 million, which due to his guidance, we reached that goal in 2020. So thank you, Vince. And also, last but not least, we would like to recognize Vicki Moen. As you all know, she's been our executive director since 2015. She joined the foundation in 2005. She served on the board of directors for 10 years, serving as secretary and president. She created a clothing resource for the district students called the Clothesline. Again, we hired her in 2015, and under her guidance and leadership and stepping in all of our events, and we've had, most of you already heard this, but our golf tournaments have had record, donations increased under her guidance as well for the last 4 years. So we appreciate all that these board members have done for our foundation, as well as Vicki Moen. So, we're moving in a good direction as well. And we look forward to assisting in the classroom and the district in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time, Tyson. And
You bet.
Vicki, you're here as a panelist. If you, I don't want to exclude you from talking, but I also don't want to put you on the spot. But if you're the one who's got a microphone capability.
I just want to assure everyone that the Gresham-Barlow Education Foundation is not going away. It is simply streamlining its process and its governance model. It will be run by all volunteers, passionate volunteers who understand the work of the foundation. They just now will not have the burden of a salary of an executive director, which means those funds can go directly into the classroom. So it's a good change, and I wish them all the best. And it has been an honor and a privilege to work beside them and to help forward the work of our educators in our district.
Vicki, I have to ask this on behalf of the kids. We're still gonna have phonathons, right? That was the kids' favorite activity of the year and destroying the district office.
They did enjoy making those phone calls, some of them. Some of those events we'll have to see if they will continue. That will be up to the new board of directors.
We have to leave stuff on John's desk.
Well, thank you, Tyson, for leading us through the recognition, and Vicki for your service. And we're incredibly grateful for the Education Foundation. Thank you, everybody. Next up is School Board Recognition Month. And Athena, your charge is to get through this as quickly as possible.
Okay, I will do my best. For the past several years, many, many years, thankfully, the month of January has been identified as a time when special efforts are made in communities throughout the state of Oregon to acknowledge the efforts of school board members and to show appreciation for their contributions to the success Oregon students enjoy. This year, as in the past, the administration wishes to call the public's attention to the critical and essential nature of the work of our school board members. We are anxiously awaiting a proclamation signed by Governor Brown. I think the pandemic has put her behind in some of her duties. She has not yet released the proclamation for this year, but I would like to read aloud the 2019 proclamation in honor of everything the school board members do for us. Whereas Oregonians rely on public education to ensure a prosperous quality of life and strong economic health for Oregon, and whereas locally elected boards fulfill leadership roles and serve as the conduit through which teachers, parents, businesses, and communities demonstrate the care, creativity, and support that lead to student achievement, and whereas public schools nurture and train diverse student populations to the best of their ability, whatever the resources, to give students the knowledge, skills, and opportunities they need to succeed. And whereas board members build the framework that makes it possible for education organizations to teach Oregon's children. And whereas the committed men and women who serve on the boards of Oregon's 197 school districts, 19 education service districts, and 17 community colleges deserve recognition and thanks for their dedication to the education needs of the people of Oregon. Now, therefore, Kate Brown, Governor of the State of Oregon, hereby proclaim January 2019 to be School Board Recognition Month in Oregon and encourage all Oregonians to join in this observance. And so as soon as we get her proclamation for 2021, we will definitely share it with all of our board members, and we will be honoring you on social media and celebrating all that you do for our students and our schools.
Chair Peterson.
Yes, Dr. Pereira.
If I might add, I also wanted to extend, I know there's a proclamation, but I really do not have the words for the amount of appreciation that I have for this board that continues to push our work and are supportive in every avenue that we head down, including being truly gracious to the work that and respect for the work that was needed and necessary and continues to be for COVID. And so I wanted to take this moment to recognize each of you as well. I tweeted out something the other day, and I want to share it with everyone here, is that, community is as much more, and I felt more at home here in Gresham than I have ever anywhere. And the community, as I was saying, community is much more than belonging. Rather, it's about committing yourself to help others to make belonging matter. And I can say that each of you definitely make things matter here in Gresham-Barlow. The students in the community are lucky to have you serving. And I continue to do my very best with the team to ensure that the vision and goals of this district are met. So I just want to thank you as well. Normally we would have some of our students doing cute songs or videos. It's been a little difficult. They're in front of computers a lot these days, so I didn't want to burden that. So, but we'll continue to work towards that.
No, well, thank you, Athena and Dr. Pereira. And we'll undersell it. I'll just add that I try not to speak on behalf of the board very often. I know that it's an honor for each of us to serve, and a unique burden to lead in the environment that we're in. That's not only a comment about COVID, but our country's gripped by divisiveness, and some of that can start at local. And so I'm incredibly grateful for colleagues who seek to understand each other, who seek to understand the varied experiences of our students and our families, and to celebrate the successes of our outstanding staff. So I think the one thing I can absolutely say on behalf of the board is what an honor it is to serve this community and our students. So now we get to move on, and I'd like to turn to the next one, a recognition for the Recertification for National Board for Professional Teaching Standards, over to Mr. Hugh.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. Good evening, everybody. Tonight we are here to recognize the Recertification for National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. The teacher being honored tonight for the renewal of their NBPTS certificate is Michelle Fulcher, who is at Gordon Russell Middle School, teaches 7th grade language arts, and is the avid teacher. Michelle is here. The board is being asked tonight to recognize a Gresham-Barlow School District teacher who has attained her recertification for the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards certificate. The renewal process requires teachers to show how they have continued their professional involvement and commitment to accomplish teaching. They must submit a portfolio with 3 entries, which demonstrates effective and reflective practice through video and written commentary that analyzes differentiated instructional choices. In addition to that, teachers must take a computer-based assessment to demonstrate understanding of content knowledge and pedagogical practices. These components of the certification process must provide sufficient evidence of how their practice meets the national teaching standards that their professional growth has focused on elevated student learning. It is perhaps the most powerful professional development experience available to teachers who are interested in improving their teaching practice. Certification is available to teachers with 3 or more years of teaching experience. Roland Hayden reached out to me, principal at Gordon Russell Middle School, and wanted to share this about Michelle. It is with great excitement that I am able to celebrate the work of Michelle Fulcher as educator for the Gresham-Barlow School District after successfully reviewing her National Board certification. The process of National Board certification is a strenuous one. Michelle is a tireless educator who constantly is reflective and focuses on supporting continued growth for herself, her students, and her colleagues. She is a leader in our building and across our district. However, her greatest accomplishment is the countless number of students who say that they are her favorite teacher. It is with tremendous pride that I congratulate Michelle Fulcher on her National Board recertification. Principal Roland Hayden. Michelle, congratulations on this recognition. Normally we would be having you come up and giving you a certificate of appreciation from the board, but I'd like to offer, maybe if you would like to say a few words to the board and to the community about this journey, because I know it has taken several months to complete this process.
Thank you so much. Believe it or not, this is my 3rd renewal process and my last renewal process, so I'm actually kind of excited. When teachers go for their master's or their PhD, they always have it. But a national certification is something that you constantly have to renew, and you constantly have to prove yourself. And when I first started the journey, John Cook was my principal at West Orient. And I was a part-time teacher, and and I found out I was pregnant at the same time, and I didn't think I could get through it. And John was like, whatever it takes, I'm going to support you. I need to thank Mr. Hayden, Roland Hayden. The measure of a great principal is someone who makes you a better teacher. And through his guidance, myself and my colleagues at Gordon Russell are better educators. I would also like to thank the district office, because in the 11th hour, when I had to provide evidence that I was doing this, I was reaching out to all of you to help me create that evidence that I work so hard at my job. I am proud to be an educator in the Gresham-Barlow School District. This is my 29th year, and I still have the passion and love. And I just really want to, I feel very grateful that you're recognizing this effort. And more importantly, I would like to encourage the Gresham-Barlow School District to continue to encourage teachers to go after their national boards. Only 3% of teachers are nationally board certified because of the strenuous expectations they have, but it is well worth it. And so thank you for making it a priority within the teachers to obtain this. So thanks again.
Michelle, I would do a high kick, but can't do that video.
I do high kicks with my arms now for my students. It's just easier.
Well, congratulations and thanks for joining us. And yeah, your legacy is so well intact at Gordon Russell and throughout the district because of your service to students. So Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, James, for introducing us through that. Okay. At this time, we set aside time for a superintendent and district leadership team report. Dr. Pereira.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. I'm actually going to defer my time to the Return to Learn update, because we have an update regarding a lot of different things regarding the current state we find ourselves in. So with that, I'm going to ask Sarah to project that document so that we can get started on that. While Sarah's pulling that up, I just wanted to share that several months into this pandemic, school closures, like so many other educators across the nation, we have been overwhelmed by the numerous changes, unprecedented, unknown things that we faced. But like many, we've grown stronger and better for it. And we're committed now than more than ever to have our students in our classrooms. We're eager to have them back. But I want to be very clear that we're committed to a plan that continues to recognize the health and safety metrics and the science from the CDC and OHA and ODE. And their recommendations and requirements will be key to our progress around COVID. And the latest executive order from Governor Brown and our Oregon legislative body. Our response this summer definitely was to roll up our sleeves and begin crafting a long-term plan. And at the same time, we dealt with the day-to-day realities of what we were facing. We've committed ourselves again, like I said, to ensure that our students had devices and food and internet and access. And also we had to continue to envision and tweak different ways in which we were delivering the work. And while there's no pandemic playbook, we've attempted to build our own through blueprints and plan that allowed us to remain committed and achieving access and opportunities for our students in public education, no matter their address, in a safe learning environment. And with that, I'll bring us to the next slide that will kick this off, in the sense that just a review of our mission, vision, and values as a district. And I want to ensure that we look at the values first in this as we move forward, and looking at stewardship and community and integrity. And all of these things are important as we move forward and have considerations, or begin to seriously consider our next steps as to what we do. Next one, Sarah. And with direction from Governor Brown, reminding us that we have to stay grounded in evidence and the work in which we are responsible for doing, wanting to ensure that we partner with OHA and that we look for transition to advisory recommendations. However, we still need to meet those requirements for our liability pieces. She's asked that, again, we review those metrics with our local health authority and the Return to Learn plan that ODE will recognize. And with that, I'll turn it over to John in the next slide, please. You're on mute, John.
Sorry about that, everybody. This is an overview of the governor's change. I think your office slide there, Sarah. Yep, there we go. The metrics have remained the same at this point, and the shift has really been decision-making to local authorities. It's still critical, though, with everything that we have been learning this week and last, that we coordinate our decisions with local health professionals, Oregon Department of Education, the Oregon Health Authority, OSHA, because their guidance hasn't changed. On January 19th, we anticipate, and some say the 21st, right now we believe the 19th, we anticipate changes to the ODE Ready Schools Safe Learners guidance as well. We don't really know what that's going to be. It could be cohort size, it could be social distancing, it could be a number of things, and we have to wait and see.
And this slide here is just a reminder that on November 13th, all the superintendents and directors in Multnomah County received a directive from Multnomah County Emergency Department that the case rates were on an upward trend And with that increase, they asked districts not to start any new limited in-person instruction. And so we have not done that. We have followed that directive. And just to let people know that since that time, the case rates have been between 300 and 550 per 100,000 people since mid-November, which is well above that 200,000 or 200 per 100,000 people that was part of that comprehensive distance learning guideline there. The current metrics, and this is, again, these are available on our website. They were most recently updated this past Tuesday. You can see that we're still above 300 per 100,000 people is our current case rate.
So as Superintendent Pereira mentioned, there was a limitation of liability passed House Bill 4402, and it stipulates that school districts that comply with the emergency rules will be immune, I guess, for lack of a better word, against any legal challenges. Should somebody contract COVID on one of our sites. However, according to PACE, which is the property and casualty insurance provider for most school districts in Oregon and the Oregon School Boards Association, we must meet metrics in order for liability limitations to apply, even though the governor now calls them advisory. The PACE interpretation also means that we must comply with any rules that come from the Department of Education, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, Multnomah County Health Department, the Oregon Health Authority, etc. Basically, any organization that has jurisdiction over our operations in any way, we have to comply with all of their rules in order for this limitation of liability to apply. As a result, the board may need to direct staff as to how to use those metrics in reopening decisions if the anticipated guidance from ODE later this month does not offer clarity.
So the next slide has to do with labor. Our colleagues in the Oregon Education Association has discussed that they want 75% of our educators vaccinated. We have done 2 staff surveys, the first in late June of 2020 and the second one in early November of 2020, where we started finding out how many of our staff would be able to return once we came back into the schools. We tried to estimate kind of planning, having our building administrators plan for about 75% of our staff coming back to the buildings and about 75% of our students coming back to the buildings, which meant 25% of our staff may not necessarily return. And then during the first 2 weeks of December before winter break, your HR team met with about 87 licensed staff members that have some type of medical consideration when it comes to returning to learn. And then since that time, we've also been meeting with about 74 licensed and classified staff members that have childcare considerations. So in essence, you know, we are about 10 to 15% of our workforce that need some kind of considerations due to COVID-19. Next slide, please. Just wanted to share and remind the group about Governor Brown's Executive Order 2029-7D, that public school employees shall fulfill duties as may be assigned by their public school employers, consistent with the provisions of this executive order and guidance from the Oregon Department of Education and the Oregon Health Authority and local county health departments. As you are aware, that educators are essential employees. And as such, you know, as far as the vaccine goes, we heard on Monday from the governor that educators have been elevated from the 1B category to the 1A section 4 category, which means that working to kind of ascertain when we're going to be able to start receiving the vaccines for educators.
So in review, there are quite a few considerations that we need to take as we move into providing additional options for educating our students. Obviously, at the forefront is current health and safety requirements, although those have been not been mandated by the governor. We certainly are still in compliance with our ODE guidelines and other such things. For example, ODE and the Return to Learn plan has us working with 100 students in a cohort each week, 35 square foot per students in a classroom. Obviously masks being required and following the OHA guidance. And those are things that we take seriously and know that will keep our any changes safe. However, there are other things that we need to continue to think about. With surveying our families and surveying and interviews with HR around our staff, we need to know how many students will be returning and wanting an option of returning on site in some capacity, and how many staff will be able to return on site or have some limitations. So we can set those schedules up and secure them for consistency. We also have been working with our transportation and meal Sodexo providers that have continually been working with our community each and every day. And our facilities with our building traffic flow, recess, what it looks like to make sure that we keep our distance, and measuring those classrooms in detail, and having great signage that we're able to now see in all of our buildings. And then also to consider is that vaccination. Everyone is very interested in when that's going to happen, and then OEA's recommendation that our staff be 75% vaccinated. Those are things that play into the when and the how we return.
Today, for this slide, I'm going to give you an overview of kind of the day in the life, and I'm going to cover some other issues that are system-wide. The first one I'll cover is the HVAC systems in the building. Thanks to the bond, most of them have been upgraded, and all of them can handle the airflow needs that are required under COVID. We also are going to double our filter replacement cycle so that the filters stay clean and serviceable. If you've been in building staff, you'll see that safety signs, traffic flow signs, and other signs have been ordered and have been hung by custodians. They're all over the building, so we can manage traffic flow, or at least show students and teachers how to manage traffic flow. And the furniture in all of our classrooms, all 840 something classrooms, has been adjusted and arranged for social distancing. That was a huge lift all through December. But let's talk about a day in the life for a student. In the morning, all of our parents will receive an email, and we're expecting them, hoping that they will comply with a pre-screening of their student that answers questions about the 6 symptoms that we need to watch out for. What we want that to do is trigger parents to keep students home and call us if symptoms have started, even if they're crossover symptoms. Bus drivers will have a screening protocol. Staff will be screening students at entrance, and classroom teachers will do a screening when kids arrive, simply because they're going to be able to see kids and look at them. Each will be trained in protocols for what to do if they do see symptoms. There are protocols for the buses, loading, unloading. There's protocols for students who are coming to school in cars and how they're dropped off and greeted by staff and brought into the building. And there are protocols for students who walk. In other words, they're going to be told to enter at the same entrance every day. All students will have ID cards. We're printing those now that will enable them to easily log in at the door where our staff key cards in. That will keep track of when they arrived and who they arrived with, which is a requirement, and not have students build up at an entrance. No, I didn't. We're good. When students enter, they'll be expected to wash hands and go straight to class. When they get to class in the morning, breakfast, if they want it and they'll pre-order it, will be waiting for them, and they'll eat in their classrooms. Once, I won't talk to instruction, that's coming in a later slide, but at recess, this is elementary and middle school related, they will have to have recess in cohorts, and they'll have designated places on the playground that cohorts can go to. At the elementary schools, unfortunately, that may mean that not all kids have access to the play structures, but they will have common sets of balls and other things to play with. And again, when they come in from recess, there'll be more hand washing. At lunch, there'll be hand washing, but it will be pre-ordered and eaten in the classroom. Exit at the end of the day will be very similar to entrance. They'll leave the same exit every day, and they'll badge out and then head home. They'll load on the buses the same way they did in the morning, and they will offload on the buses the same way that they did. I think that covers most of this slide, so we can move forward.
Good evening. I'm going to share with you a bit more detail about kind of the day in the life for elementary students. As you know, students and families will have the choice of 2 different instructional models, one being a hybrid model, the other being eGBSD or a solely online model. So starting there in the left-hand column, will be divided into 2 cohorts. Cohort A would return in person to the building on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they would be accessing applied and online learning for those days. Cohort B does exactly the opposite. They have their online learning Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then they are in person in the building on Thursday and Friday. The hybrid option does offer some opportunities for more personalized academic support that might look like more immediate feedback from their teachers, opportunity for more discourse and discussion with their peers, and some opportunities for small group instruction. As with all of this, there are lots of safety guidelines, and John covered some of that, but there's lots of opportunity for peer interaction as well. Some of that will just look different in terms of the playground, lunch times, some of those things that John just shared. And again, masks and social distancing are going to be required at all times. So the impact in an elementary school starts to look like not gathering students at a carpet area or in a small corner for instruction, and just kind of changes some of the dynamics around small group instruction and gathering students closer than 6 feet apart. Both models, because both models offer online instruction as a key component of the model, both will offer live and recorded online instruction through our current LMS systems, Google Classroom and Seesaw. We will continue to have community building and social emotional learning, regardless of the model that students or families choose. We will have scheduled English language development, Title I reading groups, special education services that will be predominantly offered online to students so that they are able to access those resources regardless of them being at home or in person. We'll similarly provide specials, or what we know as PE, music, and media will continue to be provided through our Wellness Center, which is an online resource where our teachers and staff put lessons for students to access online. And again, regardless of either model, breakfast and lunch is available to students. And then our eGBSD model provides an opportunity for students to continue to learn grade level content in their home environment. It's online daily instruction. There's flexibility for families, and we're working to have that be as familiar of an online model as possible to what we're currently doing, although there's some adjustments that may need to happen with that. In terms of how we support students within these models, it's possible that students, regardless of the model that they are in, may have a change in classroom teacher. Just in terms of as we balance staffing, as we know how many students we're serving in each model, there's adjustments that will likely need to be made. The other piece of this that's important to know is students that are in a hybrid model will have an in-person teacher and an online teacher. So 2 teachers that are supporting their learning. Our elementary school grade level teams are really great collaborators, and this model really builds on that important work that our teachers do together. And now I think Michelle's going to talk a bit about quarantine.
Yes. So this may be familiar to some, this may be new to some. So there's been really clear guidance from the Oregon Health Authority and of course the CDC as well that outlines kind of what do we do? And I know that's a big question. What do we do if a student is positive for COVID or a staff member is positive for COVID and people are on site? And so I wanted to share this ABC model because this really guides the decision making. In this model, the confirmed case of that's positive would be considered person A. And then there's the person B who's considered a close contact, and a close contact is defined as within 6 feet for 15 minutes within a 24-hour period. However, that will look a little bit different in schools in terms of actually implementing how do we, prevent the spread should there be a case that's in schools. And then there's the person C who's a close contact of a close contact, and there isn't any recommended actions at that time. But it's important to know that this is kind of the model that's used so that there's when we receive decisions about isolation periods or quarantines from our medical partners, this is kind of the model that they're looking at for how to make those decisions. And there's a link there for, there's a document that's pretty well vetted. It's pretty clear about what do we do and how do we plan for any COVID scenarios in schools that talks about all the different actions involved in that. That's provided by ODE in partnership with OHA. It is linked there on the slide. So Sarah, if you could move to the next slide. So this illustration is just intended to provide kind of a visual for, so how does the contact tracing, isolation, quarantining actually play out within cohorts? And so in looking at this, imagining a typical elementary day where students ride the bus to school, and then they're assigned to a classroom, and then they go home on the same bus. And so in this case, and just, the colors don't match between the last graphic and this one, and I've put it on the bottom here just for clarity. But if you think about looking at student with a blue circle around them, looking at that student, if that student were, let's say we were notified that that student tested positive for COVID, then what we have to do is look at who else is in that rode that bus with that student, because that group would be considered a cohort. And then we would look at what classroom is that student assigned to, because that would be another cohort that the student is assigned to. And you can see with the green, the student's got a green circle, and the student with the red circle, student in green's in the same bus, student with red circle is not on the same bus. But when it comes to making decisions about cohorting, what would happen is the recommendation would be that the bus number 1 with a student that was positive, that bus would be cohorted. So those students would be put on a quarantine. And then the students that are in cohort A classroom, those students would also be quarantined. So even though the student that has the red circle that rides a different bus wasn't on the bus, they were in the same classroom. And so both of those groups of students would be placed in quarantine. And so that's kind of how those decisions are made, because the reality of trying to make sure that, trying to count all those minutes, is it 6 feet, it's less than 15 minutes, it's pretty challenging. So the way that our MESD nursing crew is helping us determine this and make these decisions, this is the guidance that's coming out from the Oregon Health Authority and with our MESD partners. And this also applies to staff or bus drivers. They would also be part of those cohorts that would be quarantined, and it's for 14 calendar days. Next slide, please. This is just a quick slide to illustrate that when the less cohorts that students are part of, the less impact there is. So for example, if the student that had the blue circle didn't ride a bus and came to school by car, then the students in the classroom would be impacted by the quarantine, but not necessarily anybody on the bus, because the student wasn't on the bus. And we can go on to the next slide.
Good evening, everyone. This slide represents the last iteration of the hybrid schedule that we came up with as a middle school team. It represents also the AABB cohorting. So on Mondays and Tuesdays, the A cohort would attend school in person, and they would be online on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And on Thursdays and Fridays, the B cohort would attend in person and would be online Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. This allows all students to receive in-person instruction twice per week. And the in-person instruction, as you see on the schedule, it's from 9:15 to 11:55 a.m. And it is an asynchronous learning block. So with that, students would come into the school and they would go into the classroom with their advisory teacher, and they would stay in that classroom with their teacher the entire time, working on their core content classes: English, math, science, social studies. And they would have certain blocks of time for each of those lessons. And the advisory teacher would support the students as they are working asynchronously online in their classes. And then they would have lunch and go home. In the afternoon, all students, that's cohorts A and B, would attend class online synchronously. And they would have 20-minute class periods. Advisory would start, and then they would go through periods 1, 2, 3, and 4 for 20 minutes of synchronous instruction with their actual content teachers. This schedule is also set up to support EGBSD so that it can work along with the schedule instead of being a separate learning format for those students whose parents chose to keep them home rather than to engage in in-person learning, so that those students who were at home, they would engage in asynchronous learning in the morning, and they would be able to log on online to receive their synchronous instruction in the afternoon with their content teachers. This model, both of these models allow for live and recorded online instruction, and for all students to receive synchronous instruction every day. And it also supports ELD and special education students. And then also breakfast and lunch would be provided each day. Now, this schedule here is based on the current health and safety requirements. And it also, what it does is it limits the amount of synchronous instruction that can happen on a daily basis. We found that to be of great concern. So what we want to do is show you another schedule that we are recommending. Next slide. Next slide, please. Oh no, I'm sorry. Please go back. What we are recommending is that the middle school or the secondary students receive limited in-person instruction until we are ready to come back in person. And there's two options that we have suggested. Option one would be that we will focus on students who have Ds and Fs and also our special population students, and they would receive that limited in-person instruction after school and on Saturdays for 2 hours maximum. And when metrics allow, that's when metrics allow, and it's possible, but after school is a challenge with regard to staffing. The second option is to focus also on those students who are struggling academically and the special populations, but to bring them in the morning to have in-person on-site support from a teacher or a staff member while they are engaged in their asynchronous learning, and they would receive transportation to and from school. This would allow us to maintain our current CDL schedule that the students are engaged in at this time, and that schedule is displayed on this slide. As I stated, it is the current schedule, and we would just continue with that until we were able to move on to full in-person instruction.
So moving on to the next slide and going back to our COVID scenarios, should there be a positive case. So building on the dynamics of the last graph, and again, every time we're bringing students on site, we have to start thinking about the cohorting and how will it play out should a student or staff member become positive and there's a need for quarantining. And so another layer to the puzzle, if you will, is when we start considering where if exposures and the impacts at home. So for example, in the situation where the student that had the blue circle. In the home, if there were other students, other siblings in the home that were also students at school, because they are living with a positive case, those students would also be impacted by a quarantine. And the way it works when there's people in the same home is the person who is positive has a 10-day isolation period. And then the siblings would start the quarantine period after the 10 days of isolation at home. And so it's important to note that during that time, comprehensive distance learning would be available for any student that is attending our schools. We would need to be set up to quickly pivot from any in-person back to comprehensive distance learning. We have to have that available so that we're continuing to provide an education while students are in quarantine. Next slide.
So this is the high school version of what Lakeisha just shared with the middle school. It's very similar. So what you see on the left is the hybrid in-person model, where this is for students who would be on A days, which would be Mondays and Tuesdays. They would arrive at school at 10 a.m. or between 10 and 10:20. And then they would go into their advisory classroom with half of their advisory class and stay in that advisory classroom until 12:35. During that time, they would do 2 asynchronous periods 1 and 2 on Mondays, and then periods 3 and 4 on Tuesdays. And they would be doing asynchronous work with support from a teacher and with their peers. They would not be in live. That teacher would be their advisory teacher. They wouldn't be face-to-face interacting with any other teachers. Then they would get a grab and go lunch and get back on the bus and go home. And then in the afternoon at 2:15, they would log on with the B day students, and together they would do synchronous instruction with their teachers, periods 3 and 4 on Mondays and periods 1 and 2 on Tuesdays, and then it just flips for the other students. So similar to middle school, the amount of synchronous time or face-to-face time with their teachers is cut in half in this model, but it allows some students to come on site half of the time to get additional supports asynchronously in the mornings, but all of the synchronous instruction happens online in the afternoons from home. eGBSD then would align to that model. So students who opt not, or families who opt not to come into the building at all would stay completely remote and just do their synchronous instruction in the afternoon, and their asynchronous work would be happening in the morning independently at home. It does allow for that flexibility of the schedule. Both models, kids will still receive breakfast and lunch. It'll either be delivered to them or they will be receiving it on site. They still will receive ELD and special education, and they will also have their daily advisory classroom. Like Lakeisha said about the middle school programming, we recognize that this is less than desirable, but it is consistent with the current metric or current guidelines regarding how we cohort students and the space restrictions for how many students can be in a space at any one time. So next slide, please. So this slide here is what we are recommending for our high schools, very similar to our middle schools. And that is that we continue with our comprehensive distance learning model. What you see on the blue is our current schedule that students are currently doing right now. And then when the metrics allow, we would begin limited in-person instruction for some students with Ds, Fs, special populations, and students who need to do hands-on demonstration for certain activities such as CTE manufacturing. But it would be limited. Right now, the state has guidelines that it can be no more than 2 hours at a time. So if we did not have the staff to do it during the day, we could potentially offer or collaborate with some of our partners to offer it after school, potentially using Measure 98 pay for some of our teachers on Saturdays. But ideally, we would be able to have some staff in the form of EAs support our students accessing the distance learning instruction on site during the day so that they could get that additional support. The majority of students, again, would stay remote. When the metrics allow, or when the guidance allows for larger cohort sizes of 200 or 300 students and square footage space, less square footage space restrictions, then we could consider either a hybrid model and maintain the same CDL schedule, or wait until we can have all kids back in person fully. So this would allow us to have both this one and the middle school would allow us to have some limited instruction for some students, but the majority of students would remain in CDL until the metrics allow us to have more students on site and mingling together at one time.
All right. So when thinking about high schools and extracurricular activities, et cetera, and thinking about, how does that play out when students are on site? Maybe they have siblings that attend schools. And then let's say that we're adding on that layer of extracurricular activities. As you can see, the number, going back to the student that has the blue circle, that student were positive. You have the impact in the buses, the classrooms, at home. And then we add on the co-curricular activities in those groups of students. Again, the way that we have things set up, we work with MESD. They provide our school nurses decisions about who would be quarantined, how long, what's the isolation period. All of that would be made, those decisions are made by nurses. There's a very structured system set up that we're prepared to roll out when it's time to expedite the communication and make sure that we're making quick decisions, getting information where it needs to go so our medical professionals can make the decisions that help keep all of our entire school community safe. Next slide. John, you're muted.
Again, I don't do that during my meetings. I apologize. I want to recognize that there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of working hours given by almost every administrator in the district to try to work through the hundreds of pages of guidance that we have. And we keep coming full circle back to some solutions that are just challenging. So with that said, the amount of training needed to prepare rooms, train staff on protocols, train even parents on protocols, teachers, students when they come back is substantial. We are recommending that when we do come back that we adjust the calendar for 3 to 5 days of professional development to make all of that happen so that if it does happen and we come back, that we can come back as safely as possible. That covers that if we want to move forward.
So because there are still unknowns, knowing that ODE and other will provide guidance on the 19th of this month, we have set up what we have been doing this week, what we've been moving forward with, and proposing some recommendations to have some time. And you'll see that in an action item later. But we know that we have information for our parents and staff that we need to finalize, and that is coming from this week's work. We do have the recommendation of hearing from the board this evening, along with an action item for the maximum of 5 days of school being well, I want to say delayed, the calendar for the instructional days to be reduced by 5 days so we can plan and get ahead. And then we have the process of putting our teachers in the right final assignments and setting up for our multiple program options. So when we know that it's really about when metrics will allow for this, what we have to do each week, and then the training that has to be done for everybody in the entire district. And we would like to say that before the secondary begins, we would want to begin elementary in-person instruction, and so that would mean that we would have a week of training for our elementary staff prior to that. And then when the metrics allow after that, then we would begin our secondary middle school and high school limited in-person instruction. And that would take an additional 5 days to place all of our staff in the right locations and train them as well. So we're looking at a 4-week process, but we know that when the metrics hit with the approval rating, that we need to be able to move within 14 days. And so we want to make sure that we give those 14 days notice to our families, our community, and our staff. Next. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, I'm here. Get my mic on. Again, just a reminder of Governor Brown's directions for our decisions that we are grounded to make here, is that we stay grounded in the evidence and work together, that we partner with our local health authorities, and that we adhere to the metrics for returning in person, as well as reviewing any new items that come along from ODE and the Oregon Health Authority. And truly the two focus areas in the next slide that the governor's asked that all localities really focus on is truly you have a decision regarding the first recommendation stated there, or important factor is that there's a recommendation that we align ourselves with CDC, OHA, and MHA to be our benchmark levels for returning safely. And the second point is really truly, it's a local decision to adhere to with fidelity to ensure that we have the appropriate liability coverage or not. So those are the two factors that go into decision making. And the last slide are really truly a list of the things that we will ask our board to really consider for the final decision making. But I would ask that we hold off on any final decisions until January 19th guidance is delivered. And I think we are scheduled for a board meeting on the 21st. And those things are, of course, aligning ourselves with the RSSL advisory from COVID metrics recommended, as well as the current ODE safe to return to learn guidance, Multnomah County guidance, as well as staff and community input, and ensure a consistent and stable learning environment for our students. And we're asking, as Lisa highlighted in the timeline, we're asking that we adjust our instructional calendar by 5 days so that we can meet the requirements for the protocol in-person training for staff. And with that, I do have one sample before we move to questions of safety guidelines that we have prepared. Athena and her team has worked to create a series of videos, and she'd like to share a sample of one of those with the board that will launch and be out there and available for parents and families to review. Athena or Sarah, you want to go to the next one, and then we'll come back to this slide and answer questions. And again, this video is a sample, and hence it's still private. And
This part you can just dub, Dr. Pereira, right? Oh, never mind.
There are students.
Greetings. I'm the Gresham-Barlow School District Superintendent, Dr. Catrice Pereira. I'm Centennial School District Superintendent, Dr. Paul Coakley.
And I'm Reynolds School District Superintendent, Dr. Dana Diaz. We're excited to welcome students in East County back to our school building.
Our top priority is the safety of our students and staff. Our teams have worked diligently with health experts to create learning environments that includes protocols designed to keep our students and staff healthy and safe.
We've created this video to help you better understand what to expect. Schools will share specific details with their families.
Thank you for partnering with us as we work together to ensure our schools are safe, healthy, and meaningful learning environments.
Mask up.
A safe and healthy learning environment is our top priority. With guidance from the Oregon Health Authority, the Oregon Department of Education, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, public schools in Oregon have put in place protocols to allow for safe in-person instruction. Each school will be in touch with families to share specific procedures and protocols. But here's an example of what you can expect. A safe school day starts at home. Students should participate in a home health screening each day before coming to school. Students should stay at home if they show any of the following symptoms: fever or chills, cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, new loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion or runny nose, nausea or vomiting, diarrhea. Healthy behaviors are critical to maintaining a safe school environment for everyone. Along with the health assessment, parents should remind their students about how to wear face coverings properly, physical distancing, and frequent hand washing. Students should make sure they have a face covering, a filled water bottle, and any other items needed for the school day before leaving home. At the bus stop, students should maintain physical distancing and remain 6 feet apart from others. Face coverings are required. Drivers will instruct students on how to board the bus. The bus driver will assign seats to maintain physical distancing. Bus drivers will visually scan each student upon entry. Students showing signs or symptoms of illness will be isolated on the bus. Once the bus reaches the school, the student will be escorted to a specific room for further examination. Bus drivers will clean buses after each route, according to public health guidelines. Your school will give you instructions on where to enter each day if your student is walking or being driven to school. Upon arrival, staff will screen students for symptoms. Students will clean their hands using hand sanitizer before heading to their classroom. Schools have placed hand sanitizer dispensers throughout the campus for student and staff use.
So that's a sample of series of videos that Athena and her team have created for safety protocols. And you should also know that there is a Spanish version of that as well. And those all will be released once they're all finalized and approved by all 3 districts. And with that, Sarah, if you'll go back to that list of board considerations, and we'll take questions as well from the board.
Okay, board, what questions do you have?
Yeah, I know it's mind-boggling.
I just wanted to mention that I believe Reynolds has a family liaison who speaks Somali if we wanted to have a video in more languages than just Spanish and English.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Definitely look into that too with Athena.
Yeah, it's a great video.
Thank you.
So do you want statements or just questions?
Either one.
So the big thing is they've got a statement on there of 75% vaccination, and yet we're not supposed to be getting additional vaccines until the middle of February. It takes between 4 and 6 weeks for immunization after between the first dose and the second dose. So I did the math, it's a school thing, and that puts us into spring break before we have 75% of our staff adequately, if we get enough doses of vaccine and we're able to actually get enough of them done. We're not getting enough done right now, but that's a big stickler for me. If we're talking about getting a immunization rate, then we're not going to make it until much later into the school year. So I'll come back to more, but I have other things as well, but I'll let somebody else come in.
And Chris, that's a recommendation from our association. That's not a requirement from ODE.
Okay.
OHA, that is a recommendation from our association leaders.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a question about vaccination too. What is do we have any vaccinations available? How can we advocate for vaccinations? When will we be able to get that timeline of when we can get vaccinations here to our teachers is what we're looking at, but also like to the students?
Students aren't, these are for 16 and 18-year-olds. The vaccinations aren't for students at this time.
Good question, Robin. We are not aware of a time at this point as to when we will receive those. I can tell you that we, again, are partnering with our health authority in order to make that happen. We have volunteered our facilities in order for the inoculations and our help and assistance with that, but not with the testing nor with the injections themselves. So we have some local health authority that we are partnering with in order to make that happen. As James highlighted, we have been moved from 1B to 1A, but that is section 4 in 1A. So we do not have specific dates at this point. I'm eager to learn what those are as well, so we can plan and prepare for it.
The Superintendent Pereira, they met not last night, the night before as a team. They are behind. We were looking at the beginning of February, and educators are top of the list. I don't know if they've come up with a new timeline yet.
No, and that's why I didn't mention the date because it has changed from our last meeting.
Other questions?
Have teachers already seen the sample schedules and have they provided feedback?
Yeah, Lisa, John, you want to respond to that as well?
Could you please say that one more time? I missed part of that.
We met with the GBEA earlier this week, and we kind of shared with them some of our thinking at the time. And so we have at least kind of given a group of our GBA colleagues a first blush look at potentially what those schedules look like. We were planning on meeting again tomorrow morning at 7:30 once we have shared this information with the board, and if the board was able to give us some further direction so that we could kind of give more information around, again, the schedules and the opportunity for our instructional leadership team to meet and plan, and then to get some feedback from our principals as well.
And again, these schedules are samples because we have to work through the numbers that we have. We wanted to make sure we had some type of guidance and level of what it would look like in a hybrid or continuing CDL or eGBSD. We wanted to make sure that the board had access to that information. They have not been finalized, but I can tell you that our team here has worked closely with some of our principals in order to make that happen. And I think Carla have involved counselors as well.
Any other questions, board?
Yeah. After the guideline changed from the governor, it kind of messed up what they were looking to do for the liability component. And is there a estimate on when that will get straightened out?
Chris, at this moment, I'm not sure unless Jordan has heard something different from PACE. I know that I sit on the governor's committee. We do have a meeting coming up, I think next week sometime, and maybe we'll get some more guidance. She released that statement the same day that the liability piece was approved. I don't know which came first. However, one opposed the other, and that's a sticky place to be in right now for us.
In a conversation that the Oregon School Board Association Board had with Governor Brown yesterday, as well as with the, there's too many alphabets, but the Oregon Health Authority and ODE, and I believe her advisor, one of the things that came out of that was a little bit disbelief. Because part of what has to happen with this as school goes back into on-site was that ability to do on-site testing if someone is appearing to show symptoms, which may not be a fever. Just keep that in mind. Fever is not as predominant as they had originally said, in particular with students, with children. And we brought up the concern that we do not have a nurse assigned to each of our buildings. Neither does MESD, Multnomah Education Service District, have enough nurses to assign to all the schools. Their response to that is that the testing would be student supported, student enabled, with an adult to guide them. And we had a high level of disbelief that that was going to be something that was actually going to be practical and possible. So that that one is got to have a little more thinking done on that one.
Thank you for that point of contention, Chris. It is something that adamantly vocalized that I would not volunteer our staff or students to participate in those type of things. The liability on that, the coverage is again, something of a challenge. I did meet with another committee with the governor through COSA on Monday, and that was a bone of contentions in that session, but there was no correction to it. They basically just took information and input from us. So
same.
Thank you all for bringing it up as well, because it's certainly something that was vocalized in our session on Monday.
Okay. Should I just keep going, Blake?
Well, I have questions too, but
Okay,
you're.
Go ahead. I'll come.
We might overlap. My question. So a lot of this pre-planning work happened before a vaccination was even on the horizon.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the guidance that OHA and ODE that we're resting on predated the vaccination.
Yes.
That vaccinations are a reality in our future. Does that change or alter some of these requirements? Some of this day in the life type of schedules? Are there, do you get the sense that there's any kind of alteration to the plan that would happen as a result of a 70 or whatever % vaccination?
Mm-hmm.
Currently, Chair, the ODE guidance wasn't altered. I mean, the governor's decision is what altered things. So the restrictions that we have for classrooms and social distancing, et cetera, are in place. Do we anticipate on January 19th? Yes, there is speculation that could change. I also speculate pretty confidently that once vaccinations are in place, that it will change. There's a certain rate. But obviously, I'm not the decision maker.
Well,
and as we said, 70% is a pretty high bar.
Mm-hmm. And again, that's a recommendation from the association. That is not, again, an ODE piece or OHA, but that is a recommendation from our associations. However, I can say, Blake, yes, this information is based on what we know right now, with the exception of the anticipated changes that we are awaiting on, I think, the 19th of January. So hopefully we can have those prior to our date on the 21st interpreted and implemented within our plans to share with the board as our next update. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that it answered that question very well. Thank you. Chris, or any other board member questions?
I know it's a lot. It has been a lot. We've had a whole semester to work with it. So it it is a lot to digest in one evening, which is why I'm not asking for a decision on anything until guidance on the 19th.
Right. And as I'm asking or making the statements, it's not in any kind of not acknowledging the tremendous amount of work that has been done by staff as this thing keeps changing. It's like quicksand under our feet. This is more of a question maybe that I don't have children that are in school anymore. So when I looked at the schedule, it seemed like it was approximately 2 hours of on-site instruction by the time the kids got there, got settled, got in, and then we're turning around and going right back out again. So I'm not quite sure, maybe that 2 hours is the most important part of the time, but it felt like a lot of juggling around to get 2 hours maybe of time. So that's just, whether it's little kids or big kids getting settled in for 2 hours and wanting to talk with your friends and stuff. Let's see, what was my other thing?
But you're spot on with that, Chris. It's the requirement that we have, that the time and frame in which we can meet in a hybrid scenario.
And I think my final statement is I was thinking about this morning, why some of this has been sort of difficult to get to. And people bring up disconnected whatabouts. And what I came up with is that every time we've done bond assessments, we've looked at building assessments, facility needs, it all centered around having kids together closely, being able to work closely together, having collaborative work groups, having groups that you could be together. So this idea that we have to split kids apart and make them separate, sitting here in my workspace, I measured out a 35 square foot space and it's huge. And to have that many spaces in our buildings, it becomes a logistics problem. And I hadn't really thought about before that our educational goal was having kids closer together to work together. And now to have to do it backwards is a problem, is a concern, and I recognize that. I think that was about it. I still have transportation issues that we won't be able to get enough kids on a bus to get here safely. And we have parents who cannot take their kids to school in a car, or likewise, we're going to have 8 kids in it. Well, maybe not 8, but 4 or 5 kids in a car that you've just messed up your cohort group if you've got neighborhood kids coming together that are not in one classroom. So that's an issue as well as we try and work through this of how do we safely get them there and how do we safely get them back where it may not be their home. It may be going back to another caregiver's house for the afternoon kind of deal. So those are just my thoughts on it today.
I'd like to know what our teachers and parents are going to think of the length of the day. I noticed that middle school and high school get out at 4 and at 4:30. So but right now they don't end that late. So I'm trying to, I mean, we don't have access to the PowerPoint right now, but I'm just trying to figure out how the day got so long. Is it because of all the requirements they have to go in the morning?
Director Gomez, some adjustment in start and stop times. Part of that is because of bus routes and be able to clean buses in between. So there have been some changes.
John, I think that you're looking at, so that's the length of the entire day. It's an 8-hour day that encompasses the staff, what the staff is doing. Also, it just also shows, so when the staff is doing this, we only showed you the student part of that. So depending on what you look at, that where it says for example, on slide 16, it says middle school student 8 to 4. That's our current day, but they're not doing school from 8 to 4. That's just the entire day, from preparing for the day to their advisory to a learning break to applied learning. There's a lot of we didn't put the actual time minutes in there, but that's just the time. That's just the window of time.
Can you go back to the slide that shows that?
Yeah.
Is that what you're looking at, or the one prior to that?
Well, I think it must be the one. Yeah, that proposed one. So, okay, so it is the morning, and then go to the high school one,
which is 19. It's 18, I think.
Oh yeah, so it was the one before that. There's something about a Saturday there. The peak that has
so go to the next slide. And there you go. So in limited in person, is that what you're talking about?
There's one with middle school that has a middle column, a pink middle column, and it says something about us. Oh, maybe it is that one. Yes.
It's the same as middle and high. All that says is in limited in-person instruction, a possibility could be, when would we do that if we're restricted to 2 hours and kids are in school in CDL all day? So these are possible timeframes when that could be offered, but there are challenges with doing that.
And then the high school one, the blue column, there's 2 shades of blue. Is that because one group is doing one thing and?
No, if you go back, Sarah, there. Yeah. So the light blue is when they're either getting ready to come to school or they're at school. And the dark blue is when they're all at home doing synchronous instruction. So what Chris pointed out is that in this model, so if given our current 100 student cohort and 35 square feet per student, if we were going to do fully hybrid, meaning all of our kids are coming back half on A days and half on B days, then the only way we could safely do that and adhere to those guidelines is to only have them in one classroom for the entire time they're in the building. And so the way we figured out the schedule was, in order for them to be in that one classroom, they would have to be doing and not have the teachers teaching simultaneously. There's a lot of logistics behind this, but basically they would asynchronously be sitting there with an advisory teacher, then get on the bus, go home. And then in the afternoon, the darker blue indicates that they would be logging on. And I want to be clear that in both this model and the middle school model, we are not recommending these models. These were our best thinking with the current metrics. What we are recommending is that given this, if we were told you have to come back to hybrid now, fully hybrid, with the current restrictions of 100 students per cohort, this is the best we could do. So our recommendation is to not come back in full hybrid, but to leverage limited in person and remain CDL for everyone else because of these. This is what the model would look like if we came back full in hybrid right now. For secondary, it is different for elementary. Elementary is on site for the entire day. It's just secondary that would have these shorter timeframes.
Thanks for the clarification.
What would help us in that scenario, loosen up a little bit, would be the size of the cohorts. Right now, they're limited and restricted to 100 students. And so that's part of that reason, and the choppiness that occurs in that schedule, Myra, because secondary students, you know, they have individual classes. You and I could be together in English, but doesn't mean we're together in our elective courses or our special classes. Elementary is more consistent and conducive to a hybrid schedule because the kids are together for the majority of the day, all day.
Oh, go ahead, Dr. Perro.
I was going to ask if there are more questions or comments. I mean, I know it's a lot. We're not asking for a decision today, with the exception of the instructional calendar. Other than that, we're wanting to make sure that we, delivered this information to you tonight based on what was released prior to winter break.
Did we want any questions from the participants? I saw someone, I think Kylie's hand was up for a while and then she put it down.
I think with our, as discussed in the citizens request to the board, I would encourage them to email Sarah Avery. I think, I guess these schedules, these are just a kind of a background. These are our district staff pouring through OHA, ODE, principally guidance and figuring out logistically how it works in our buildings. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the lowest, this meets the lowest safety standard of those requirements logistically.
Yes, the knowledge. But remember, we're humans, so implementing that with fidelity every single day is also should be factored into all of this as well. We try to.
Okay. I'm not saying that we should target lowest standard, but I think it's I agree with what Chris said earlier. Our information changes so frequently. My understanding of how the virus behaves, and I'm not a medical professional it's not surface shared for the most part. So having kids not being able to share playground equipment seems, I don't know, not consistent with the science that we currently have. Changing our transportation lines so that a bus driver can disinfect every seat and surface when something is not scientifically surface spread seems problematic. And I'm just curious when OHA's guidelines might catch up to the FDA or the CDC's guidelines. Will be really compelling.
Chair, that's exactly, we've had that same discussion. The newest research is exactly as you say it is. It's a matter of when do the guidelines change? I'm hoping that some of that changes on January 19th.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just made of questions, and I'm sure everybody who's participating in this conversation and observing it is made of questions. And I know that includes our district leadership who's been poring over this. I'm sure you have more questions than you have answers at this point as well. And I'm grateful for the hard work. Yeah, we'll look. I want to clarify. So you're looking for a decision today on the instructional calendar?
Only on the instructional calendar so that we can get our staff up to date on the protocols. And on those days, we would not have staff teaching in the CDL. So we're asking for somewhat of adjustment. I don't know exactly when those dates will be, which is why I'm asking now so that we can, when we do know, we can plan and prepare for it. But we do need a 3 to 5 day window to make that happen, as well as we are required to allow our staff to prepare their classrooms for students to come in whenever that is. And again, I want to be clear, this is not asking anyone to approve us returning to school. This is an update based on the metrics and the science that we know right now today. And no matter what happens with face-to-face, I do believe that our board, I think you're in a peculiar place with the advisory from our governor regarding advisory, because it almost demands that you are health experts, and you are not, neither are we, in order to make that call. We have said all along that we were going to depend on the metrics and the science to guide our decision making, and with advisory designation doesn't necessarily always allow for that. It allows for us to go outside of it, but then there are consequences for doing that. And I can't recommend to the board to not adhere to our metrics at this point. That would be negligence on my part as a superintendent because of the liability issues that come along with it.
The instructional calendar extension, I imagine that takes formal action because we approved the calendars back in summer.
Chair Peterson, as a point of order, that is on the agenda later as an action item.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Okay. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, once the leadership team receives feedback from staff, I'd be curious to hear what that is. If they can share that with the board, that'd be great.
Sure, we should have another round of updates on the 21st. Chair Gomez.
Okay. Any final questions for this conversation from the board?
Chair,
All right,
Chair,
yeah,
I
Dr.
do have
Ferrer.
one last piece based on what Vice Chair Gomez shared, is that in this environment and what we're doing, sometimes it's not always possible to get feedback from everyone regarding these things because there are deadlines. Sometimes we have to submit stuff. So again, I want to, in full transparency, admit to the fact that some of these things are going to have to be made with our leadership team and moving forward. Because in some cases, we will not have the luxury of time and including all voices. And so this is why we were trying to update every single board meeting that we receive when we receive new guidance.
Yeah, I appreciate that. No, and I understand that.
Okay, so I imagine this will be the focus of our work session on the 21st. We look forward to new information, a reminder to our public who are in attendance, work sessions. We don't typically have public comment at work sessions. I think for timeliness, I would say we won't. I'll consult with Vice Chair Gomez on that one, but I think it's unlikely that we'll have comment at a work session, but our email addresses are available on the district website. And I think you're always welcome to, and we'd encourage you to email us and let us know your thoughts as well. This is a very, very confusing time, and there's a lot to weigh. District leadership team, thank you for the hard work, the logistics behind this. Thanks for bringing it to us. At this time, we have a recess on the schedule, and we're going to take it. I have 8:48 p.m. and I'm going to ask us to reconvene at 9 p.m. 12 minutes, and we'll get moving through our agenda quickly after that. So 12 minutes, please. All right, I'll just look for visual confirmation of the directors, and then we'll get reconvene. Right, thanks. Dr. Pereira, is Director Peluso there with you? Okay. And all right. All right, we're going to reconvene. We're going to move right into association reports. First up is the Gresham-Barlow Education Association. Rhett Hyman.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time tonight. I just wanted to, well, first of all, thank you, board, for all your hard work. I know this is a school board appreciation month, so I appreciate your hard work, especially during these most interesting times. So thank you for that. I just want to start off. I mean, so teachers have been under, as you know, intense pressure, administrators, all of that, very high anxiety. And on December 23rd, when the governor made that very surprise announcement, it didn't do any good or any help to the anxiety levels of our teachers and our staff and our administrators and everybody involved in the school district. And I've had lots and lots of emails and heard many concerns as well as all of you have during these times. And I just want to implore really highly that we continue to look at those metrics as mandatory. I know the state has changed them to advisory, but just want to continue to make sure that those metrics are used so that whenever and if we do come back this year, that we do it in the most safe way for our teachers, for our classified, for our principals, for all involved, for our families, for everybody, because we don't want anything tragic to happen in our district. I know none of us want that. So I just implore, and I know there's a lot of teachers on this school board meeting listening, that as a representative of our union, that we really implore that we make the strongest stand that we can and continue to really make sure that those metrics are followed as well as we can, so we have a safe return for everybody involved. So that's where we're at. And I mean, we all want to be with our students. You know, we all want to be with our students. We miss them. I see them on those calls, and I just, you know, coming after break, I miss them and was so excited to see them. And we all want to be in that classroom with them and have that direct instruction and just give them that timely feedback. But again, the safest way possible. We don't want anything to happen to anybody involved with our school district. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your hard work.
Thanks, Mr. Hyman. Next, we have the Oregon School Employees Association, OSEA, and Tia Ross.
Thank you, Chair Peterson, fellow members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Pereira. We would like to say Happy School Board Appreciation Month. We appreciate everything you do to commit to our students. The association has made a contribution of $100 to the Gresham-Barlow Education Foundation in your name. This past year has had special challenges, and we thank you for all of your hard work. We also know that you as well share our concerns about in-person learning and hope that whatever happens, we do it in the safest possible way and that we continue to use the metrics. We are also relieved to hear that educators have been given a higher priority by the governor to receive the vaccine. We all want to return to our building to be with our students and hope this will make it possible sooner in the safest way. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. We're going to move to a citizen's request of the board. So this is a few in our audience have been long waiting for their opportunity to share public comment. So we received 4 public comments. Is that still our count, Sarah?
Yes, we received 4 prior to the meeting.
Okay, and I know of one commenter who has submitted a written comment and is not intending to share it. Do we know on the, and I know of one who is intending to share. Is that?
Those were the
So-
two that I heard back from as to whether they wanted to share or not. So I'm not sure
Okay.
if the other two wanted to or not.
Okay, well, what I'll do is I will ask first Steve Edwards, if you could promote Steve to commenter. So the way that this has to work in a digital environment is if you're an attendee, yeah, I appreciate that, Steve. If you're an attendee who provided written comment, so I'll list the names. We have Steve Edwards discussing topic of bringing sports back. Annie Koenig, being able to play basketball in gyms. That's a written comment. Nicole Anderson, advocating for a continuation of CDL, comprehensive distance learning. And Kat Arn, related to opening some of our facilities. Those are the letters we received. If you are in that group and would like to read your comments, then please do just raise your hand in the attendee field, and one by one, Sarah will promote you to panelists so that you can share face to face. A couple of reminders. One, this is kind of an odd exchange in that you'll present your ideas and your thoughts and your perspective, and we value that. We can't always properly express how much we value that because the board works as a body of 7. And so we, as a practice, just don't engage in back and forth conversation about it. But we're grateful for the comment. Even if you're not able to read that comment into record or present it today, it is in public record, and the public can access your perspective as well. And I just ask that anybody who is sharing try to keep it to 3 minutes, and that way we can give people a chance to share. So first up, Steve Edwards, please introduce yourself, your relationship to the district, and then let us know what your thoughts are. Thanks, Steve.
Hi, my name is Steve. I grew up in the Gresham-Barlow School District. I'm a 1987 graduate of Gresham High School. I have one daughter that has already graduated from Sam Barlow High School in 2017 and is actually serving as a primary school teacher. And then another son who's a senior at Barlow this year. Before, I won't read my entire comment because you can see the email, it's rather lengthy. I'm not known for being short. Regarding the metrics, I do want to add a couple comments in. I've watched my son's senior year be destroyed by distance learning, by lack of access to in-person learning, things that he's missing out that he will never get back. I've heard people talk about wanting to be safe, and I'd like anybody who said that to tell me what in life is perfectly safe. When is anything perfectly safe? Per CDC stats, kids under age 20 have a 99.997 survivability rate of this. That's a 0.003 risk of anything happening or any fatality. They have more danger driving to school. We need to have balance for once and not just think about, oh my gosh, somebody's going to get sick. In regards to the gyms, we have 2 beautiful facilities that are ready to be used, and kids in state after state after state, whether it's Idaho, Utah, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Ohio, playing sports, playing interscholastic sports. And all we do is allow our kids to practice outside in the middle of winter. Parents are so desperate for their kids to play sports that they are spending tons of money and time traveling just to let their kids play sport. I myself and my son with 7 of his friends have traveled to Idaho twice, 850 miles round trip, 12 hours driving, and multiple dollars to play in a basketball tournament where 75 out of 78 teams are from Oregon and Washington. And this was in December. We'll be going at the end of January. And I fail to comprehend why it's perfectly safe and allowable for kids to play sports without a problem in Idaho, but somehow it's not here. We have beautiful facilities that need to be used, and taking the way of the sports from our kids is damaging, not just physically, but from a mental health standpoint. And I've seen story after story, and I watch state after state have their kids playing sports and in gyms and wondering why we cannot do the same for our kids after so many months. The stats do not bear out that we keep them isolated. The stats bear out that kids are safe and need to be in school and playing sports. So please use the facilities where we have, work with our coaches, let them get their teams together and play and practice, because it is what's best both for their physical and for their mental health. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Edwards. I don't see any other attendees with their hands raised. In the interest of time, I would just encourage folks, you can access public statements by going to the district website, hover over board. If you're on a desktop device, hover over board, go to board information, and there's the board docs, almost a banner. Looks like a tree. You click on that, and then you can access any meeting. And we are on agenda item H1 is where all of those comments are stored. If you're on a
Blake,
mobile
I have
device.
a quick question.
Sure.
Apologize for interrupting. On our January 21st work session, is it possible to get an update on OSAA's shortened season, what's going on with that? My guess is we'll probably might have something by the 19th. It would be just good to have an update where we're at, if possible.
Yeah, I imagine so. I'll look to the superintendent for confirmation that we might have newer information.
I second that request if you need a second.
Well, yep, thank you. Thanks, Director Stowers.
At OSAA, I'm on the executive board, and we do have an upcoming session that will be considering some guidelines that are utilized in neighboring states. I don't know what the outcome of that will be, Matt, until that time, but definitely between now and the 21st, I'll have some information to share at the next board.
That's a great interjection, so thank you. If you're on a mobile device, just go to board information, find the board docs link, and that's where you can access those public statements. Okay. At this time, we're going to move forward into a return to learn update to include hybrid learning. This is that 5-day change to an instructional calendar that was requested. And so Lisa Riggs, this has your name on it.
And I just froze.
We can hear you, I believe. Or maybe not.
I can hear her.
Still? Or am I the only one sitting in silence?
He's frozen now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't hear anything.
Just have a whole conversation. I could hear it.
Yeah, oh goodness, getting gaslighted over here. Okay, Dr. Pereira, or if Lisa's coming back on. Otherwise, if we're dropping. Did we just lose Sarah as well?
I know there's a big windstorm right now. Big 35-mile-an-hour windstorm hitting us. Where'd everybody go? What'd you do, Blake?
I think because Sarah disconnected, maybe everyone else disconnected who was a participant. You think?
Yeah, I think something happened to the district's internet.
Huh.
It's a keen insight there.
Well, there's Red. Okay. Hi,
well,
Red.
Red's still with us. Thanks for sticking in there.
This is my highlight of the month.
Yes, it looks like everyone that was coming to us from district office has
Yeah,
dropped.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
So Tracy, that means that you're in charge.
It actually shows that Matt is officially the host.
Really?
Yeah, we don't have our records custodian in the meeting, so we're not going to proceed with any.
I meant she could just make up whatever she wants now. She's the last man standing.
We're regaining on some personal devices.
We've got money. There's the money.
Yeah, the internet went down at the district office.
Oh.
I like my new nickname though, Director Howitt.
Well, let's just sit fast until they're working on restoring. I think, I would imagine Jeff Gibbs is behind the camera doing some magic too. So
I'm doing some stuff. No promises.
So Jordan, did you pay the cable bill?
I knew I forgot something this month.
Did you lose your internet?
Yeah, internet's down in the district office.
Hi, can I say hi to whoever you're talking to? Hi. Hello.
You know,
it's a compelling story. Make sure it's shared broad and wide.
she'll do that as soon as she has internet.
Just to fill the silence, did you guys notice that tonight was the first dry night in I don't know how many days, and it happens to be when we're all still working this late?
Yeah, but it's also cold. It's cold. The wind is blowing and it's cold.
But we got Catrice back.
Well,
Yeah.
we all have internet problems at the district office.
We figured that out.
You're using your phone as a hotspot, Catrice?
Yeah. Oh, you're muted though.
I thought that would have ended with 2020. I'm using my hotspot. I am. Our internet is down. The exception is Sarah running the meeting. So.
Okay. So Sarah is back.
I think she's trying to link in, Blake.
Okay.
But I can step over and see. But I'm back on. I see Lisa.
Okay.
Via
And
my cell
Director
phone.
Paluso is with you. So as soon as if Sarah's able to, that way we have a public records.
Sure.
This is being recorded. I can see.
It does still have the record button. Yeah, I was looking at that too.
Maybe I just need the support. Did you ever think about that? No. Well,
Now you-
Everybody needs a crutch.
Now you know how teachers feel every day with their students.
In admin, Red, you have no idea how
Adapt, move forward.
talking to no one.
Red, I know you're in the same boat, but as a parent of 6 digital learners, there's a whole nother lens to that too.
Yep, for sure.
I've jumped into my niece's class to ask questions when I can't help her with her homework.
Okay. I've got a call-in listener. I will take some, I'll just make sure to restate every motion from here on. So as soon as Dr. Crazy.
Oh, thanks.
Is Dr. Pereira close in? All right.
She's trying to connect on my phone as well. But
okay.
We've had
Yeah,
too many-
appreciate the agility,
Right.
everybody. We're going to go ahead and move forward on our agenda, and we'll just keep record as we go. Okay, so we were in the midst of the Return to Learn update with Lisa Riggs.
Well, I'm going to do my best to, since I don't have it in front of me and I can't use my phone and do this, but we had given the board, thank you, Board Chair Peterson and Board and Superintendent, but we had given you an update in our Return to Learn that there are some adjustments that need to be made to the instructional calendar. And we are requesting a 5-day interruption to the instructional calendar where we will not be able to have class because we will be in preparation for our limited in-person and hybrid and EGBSD transition. This requires a lot of health and safety professional learning for all of the staff, and that includes everyone. And also any days needed to prepare new classrooms or adjust the classrooms that will be used. So we are just asking for an interruption, and until we know more from the Oregon Department of Education updating their plans, we will not know for sure when those dates are needed. I did put in the presentation, however, that we know that it will be up to 5 days. So we're requesting an interruption and a reduction of 5 days, not an extension, but a reduction of 5 days of instruction so we can make the transition to hybrid in Lippy without specified dates.
So can I ask a clarifying question then? I think I heard what you said. So we're not adding 5 days to the end of the school year in any way. These aren't snow days we're restoring. So it's just saying 5 days will be pulled from instructional calendar and used as in-service days, basically.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right.
This is, I imagine there are contingencies where we don't necessarily go to hybrid or Liddy. If that's the case, these are unnecessary days.
Correct.
Okay.
They would just revert back to regular instructional days. They wouldn't be the in-service days.
Correct.
Okay. Do you want a motion, Blake, or you want to wait a second?
Well, just any other clarifying questions from the board? Okay. Yeah, this does require action.
Okay, so I'm going to read it off of the agenda topic. So it says I move to approve a 5-day change to the instructional calendar, dates to be determined, to allow time for professional learning and classroom setup for hybrid instruction.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Director Howard, second by Director O'Connell to approve a 5-day change to the instructional calendar, dates to be determined, to allow time for professional learning and classroom setup for hybrid instruction. Is there any discussion?
So it did in the, I think the introduction that Lisa Riggs gave, this would include all staff be available for this, that it would be both licensed and classified staff that would need to be part of this adjustment.
Correct.
Okay.
I think in your introduction, you had introduced as up to 5 days.
So at this point, we're making the recommendation of just making the reduction of 5 days. And if somehow that can be mediated to less at the time, we will let people know as well. We're taking the worst case scenario of a total of 5 days.
But the district is not bound to 5 days if it doesn't require 5 days.
Correct.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So then the kids would be losing 5 days.
Correct.
Up to
5 days.
Why can't we make them up?
That would take an agreement with our associations and extending the calendar at that point.
which could be next steps, but we want to make sure that we have the time when we need it to make that pivot within 2 weeks.
Okay, so is that part of the action that we would find a?
It is not part of the action right now, no.
So does it need to be amended?
To add to the calendar would require at least a conversation with
finance
staff over the contract. So it can be added. It's like snow days at the end of the year, but it has to be a conversation. So I would be uncomfortable adding it to this motion without having talked to them first.
Plus, there's a budgetary concept issue with that too.
So then we don't need to add to the motion that we're going to try to make them up.
No, that isn't part of the motion.
So this motion before is basically just allows the district to cut those instructional days by 5. Doesn't require association conversation because it doesn't affect any employee banks or compensation. And you're correct, Director Gomez, we're pulling those days from kids. Yep. In order to pivot theoretically to a hybrid model or limited in-person instruction. Okay. Any other discussion?
We have a better grasp of when those days will be. Chair Peterson and Vice Chair Gomez, we definitely will let the board know about that. But again, any extension to that, we definitely would have to sit down with our associations and come to an agreement, as well as Director O'Connell mentioned, there are budgetary implications for extensions as well. So again, this could be a 2 or 3 day training, or we max it out to 5 because we want to have the flexibility to be able to do the training. It's all required in person.
Any further discussion? All right, so the motion.
Consecutive days?
Consecutive days.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
I have a lag, but I was aye.
You were aye. Okay. Thanks for the clarification. And okay. We'll move on to board reports and requests. We're at 9:30 p.m. So I would ask that the board be mindful of the time as we do this, but I invite you to share what you've been up to. I'm going to start with Director Stowers.
She's frozen. You might want to go.
Okay, I'm going to start with Director Howitt, and then we'll move to Director Stowers if that's
okay. Actually, it's been pretty quiet around our place. We're just coming out of our 2-week quarantine, so we did not actually venture very far and have not done much of anything. So looking forward to get a little bit farther out of the house.
Better? Yeah, thank you.
Director Stowers.
So I would like just to take a moment to recognize a newly formed community-based organization called Youth Oregon. They sent us all an email, and they're focused on education equity in East County. The founders are 2 Gresham High School graduates. That's Jason Mosley and Chelsea Cortez, and they are great community leaders, and I just look forward to working with them.
Okay, Director Peluso.
Yeah, I am retired, and I'm liking that 2 days I'm retired now. So that's so I am happy to be able to spend more time with my legislative colleagues here in Gresham on the school board, and I will be able to attend almost everything, I think, from here and now on. So I have had a really good run, and I'm happy about that. And like I say, I am retired, so I'm going to use that as a great reason to do things.
Director O'Connell.
Yes, I'd just like to say congratulations to Carla for retiring. I expect to see you much more on the Springwater Trail. I still
bet.
bike it every morning. I saw you a couple times this summer, but it's great in the rain.
Yeah, it is.
But also, go ahead. I also like to say that our 5th grandchild was born December 1st in Bozeman, Montana.
Nice.
And my wife's seeing him tomorrow, and I'm staying here because I have to work.
Get to work. Yeah. Director Roscoe-Beach.
I don't have much to report. I pretty much took a vacation for most of the month of December because, you know, I felt like I was working for 2 years straight. So took a break, and I'm ready to, you know, hit hard, you know, with the new blue wave we got going on with everything that we're seeing in the Capitol. I don't know, man, just I feel like I totally processed that like today, because yesterday I was so focused on like the Georgia win. But other than that, no, I'm just really excited for the future, and I'm really excited for this new year. There's like some rocky starts, but I'm really optimistic, and I want to manifest that with all of you today, that hopefully just the future is just going to look amazing.
Director Gomez.
I want to thank all of you is taking the opportunity that it is what is it, School Board Appreciation Month. Like I really appreciate working with all of you, and I'm learning with you and from you. So thank you for letting me be part of this team.
All right, thanks. We're back into school. Just a few tiers, what that means, and you know, I think I guess I'll use my report to say we have almost an impossibly hard decision to make in our future. I'm a little bit disappointed in state leadership and the position that they put us in, and I think whatever decision we come to has to be student first. We've insisted on that at every turn. But it's going to be a gentle balance because we're also one of the largest employers in our area. We're going to be mindful of our employee safety. But I'll candidly say I don't think it is possible to meet our mission in our current delivery model. So if mission failure is acceptable, then this model is acceptable. That's my thought in stark terms, but that's saying nothing about the quality of educators in our district and how grateful I am for them. We see it every day in our own home. So we're going to come to a good decision. It's not going to be popular universally. We're going to do the best thing for kids, and that's what we've shown consistently. So anyway, all right. We move to information items. We have a Nutrition Services Annual Report, and I'm going to ask Jordan Ely to introduce Sheldon.
Thank you, Chair Peterson. We're joined by Sheldon Moore tonight. He is our Nutrition Services Manager from Sodexo, and he's going to highlight last year's Nutrition Services program for us. In a regular year, Sodexo employs more than 90 people to feed approximately 12,000 students across 25 sites. This year, Sodexo has partnered very well with First Student. And I can't give you a number of sites, but if we counted every bus stop, I think we're in the hundreds easily, providing food to students this year. Sodexo's done an awesome job for us. They operate on a cost-effective basis, and that is continuing this year, meaning that total operating costs do not exceed total program revenues. Really grateful to have Sheldon on the team and his team as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Sheldon for a review of last year's program.
Hi, Sheldon.
Hello, good evening. Good to see all you guys again. Seems like it's been like 2-3 years since I really got to talk to you guys, but good evening, and I'll be brief with this in a little time here tonight. But thank you, Chair Peterson and directors and Superintendent Pereira thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you guys tonight. I do want to apologize because I was on the agenda for December, but I had some health issues, so I had to postpone that. And so I'll just get into this. You do have a handout. I hope you have a handout in front of you that I prepared for last month's meeting. I don't know if you have that or not, but okay. So I'll just go over the brief highlights from when I made this last month. A lot of it has highlights from last school year. I say the abbreviated school year because we had half a school year and then half emergency closure year. That's how I classify last year. But the school year was going great until March 12th. And I highlighted that down on the added values for our students because we had our Future Chef event that we normally have every year on that day that everything seemed to close down on us. So that's an event that our staff looks forward to. I look forward to. Our students look forward to it. Our little students. And it was a sad day when we had to cancel that right on the day of the event. Hopefully, we will get back to that event. We might have to look outside the box on how we will actually do that event again, but we want to bring those value-added events back once the students come back. As far as highlights, last year during our emergency closure, we fed and served 150,000 meals during that closure time, which is a great success for our staff, along with, like Jordan said, with the help of First students reaching out into our communities and getting meals out to those people in need during that time. I cannot be more proud of our staff and the First student staff and the things that they had to adjust to on short notices and getting these out. So I applaud them every day for what they did during the emergency closure and what they're doing now. During the summer, our meals went down, we went to 2,200, but that's about what we do in the summer during a regular summer time. And during the school year, when I made this up, we were at 280,000 meals. We're averaging about 14,000 meals, 14,000 meals for each meal session. So we're doing about 4,500 meals per day that we're serving now during the school year. So things that that we have achieved going into the school year, if you remember correctly, we had 3 schools that were on CEP and we had schools that were on Provision 2. Well, before this school year, we actually had moved those Provision 2 schools to CEP, and we had added 4 more schools onto CEP. So there's only a certain amount of schools now that that are not on CEP, and they're the ones that are a little farther west there, the East Orients, out in that area that are not on CEP, but mostly the rest of our district is moving back to CEP. So that was a good success. We're not really using that this year because we're on the summer feeding site where everybody is free, but when we get students back in the schools next year, we'll be on CEP for those schools there.
How many schools total do we have CEP? Is that 6?
We have 6. We have 6 and then we added 4, so we have 10 now. We will have 10 going into next school year. On our 4 areas of focus, like I said, this flyer was done early part of December. We were working on distance learning, what we're going to do for distance learning, what we're going to do for the hybrid model. We have kind of gotten to a point to where we're almost finalizing that, along with the leadership teams with the district. So we will have that finalized here as soon as we get more information on that. But we're working on that. And then we still want to continue our outreach with Sam Barlow Culinary school, and the teacher out there, Sam, I forget her last name right now, but we were right in the process of actually partnership with them to where that culinary team would use our food truck as part of their class, and they would actually go to events on Saturday where they would take the food truck and have a business adventure, and they would set it up, run it, serve meals out of it, and so forth. We're hoping to bring that back once those students come back, but that's something that was right on the verge, and then COVID hit and put it to a halt. So that's, I kind of wanted to keep it short, a little time, but if there's any questions that I can, oh, one other thing, financials. How can I leave that out? Budget-wise, we're at 105% of our budgets that we had. We are down on meals, and that's because, you know, we don't have all our students back, but we're above our budget. And the reason for that is because we have the waivers from USDA that has kicked in. And so we're able to serve dinner meals, and we're able to serve more breakfast meals. And the reimbursement rate for dinner is the same as for lunch. So we're offsetting our dollars because we're doing more dinner and breakfast meals on that. So we're above the budget, but we're below what we would serve meals in a normal school year. So any questions?
Your team is doing an awesome job, Sheldon. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Any questions for? All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you guys also.
Okay. Another information item, financial report as of November 30. Jordan.
Thanks again. Consistent with the last report, projected revenues continued to decline modestly, but expenditures are following the same trend. The net result is a slight improvement in projected ending fund balance. The most significant changes to the revenue outlook from the October 31 report, both of them are state school fund direct support to us, and then also our share of MESD funding has reduced a little bit, which results in a loss of flow through on revenue there. So revenue in both categories is down. On the expenditure side, savings from the subs/temp salaries line item, if you're reviewing your report, continue to help offset increases to the charter school payments line item. Overall, we are now projecting an ending fund balance of 16.8 million. This projection is likely to change significantly depending on operations, when and if the district returns to in-person instruction and the myriad resulting variables, which are not possible to predict with currently available information. So to flesh that out a little bit, if the model that we're in right now is trending lower than budget on expenditure, on the expenditure side, I don't expect much change on the revenue side from what we're projecting. But on the expenditure side, we continue with our projections to plan for a return to in-person learning. And so we're trying to model out what that might look like. But if we don't return to in-person, this ending fund balance projection will continue to grow throughout the year.
Hey, Jordan, I have a quick question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Now that Gresham High School's finished or very close to, and or any of the other schools that are close as well, can we get a kind of a comparison of budget to actuals? And I understand, like with the original, and I want to go back to the original budget, and then I understand the change orders and why the change orders. And I think it would be kind of good to see that graphically, just so we know where we're at and how we ended up and how we ended there, if you will. And so we can fully understand or make sure we're spending we spent our dollars wisely.
So you're speaking about the bond fund, the capital project fund?
Yes, I'm sorry, the high school, the funds, the bond funds.
Absolutely.
And you know, with the high school completed, I mean, that's one of our largest projects, and that has by far the most visibility at this point. And it would be good to see that one. If you want to do it offline, that's fine. Or if you want to do it at a work session, it's up to Blake on how that's scheduled.
Well, I was going to ask, when's our next bond update?
Yeah, same thing.
Well, the next bond committee meeting would be in March, bond oversight committee, if that committee chooses to call a meeting. But in terms of us providing an update to you, I'll just defer to Chair Peterson and Superintendent Pereira. If you two would like to decide when you'd like me to present that information to the board, we can prepare that for the
well,
next.
I'm absolutely in concurrence that I'd like to see that information. I want to respect that you have a lot to deal with in COVID and return to learn. So I'll work with Dr. Pereira. Basically, if the next time we receive a bond update, I totally concur. I'd like to start seeing that full picture from what went before voters to where we are today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we talked about putting it back to voters on what to do with the money that the surplus, right? With the extra funds we talked about the pool.
I don't remember a conversation about taking back to voters except in the context of making sure make sure we fulfill everything that was on the ballot. And then, yeah, I think all of that would be a very valuable discussion the next time we have a bond update. So I'll work with you, Dr. Pereira and Myra, on when the best way to do that is.
Chair Peterson, if you like it at your strategic planning end of February, would probably be an opportunity for us to really dig in with you all.
If that's a realistic timeline, then great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, announcements. We have January 21st, we have a board work session at 6 p.m. I want to alert the board that I would tentatively mark your calendar for January 28th, an additional work session because of the return to learn and all that entails. Just keep it marked off on your calendar. That would be a 6 p.m. Depending on health advisories, we might talk about an in-person for that, but I'll talk with Director Gomez about that, but at least mark the January 28th on your calendar. February 4th, we have board work session at 6 p.m. Followed by a regular board business meeting at 7 p.m. And there being no other business before the board, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Have a good night.